America, one voice, united we stand. I am America, one hope to heal our land.
Hi, I'm Debbie Georgatos. Welcome to my show, America Can We Talk? Today, we're going to talk about nationalized election tyranny. You cannot believe what they're doing. Felicia Wilson, founder of Think Out, Be Light fashion show to support and feature Americans with Down syndrome, and border busting bonanza. And of course, I'll tell you why these stories matter to you. Stay tuned.
I am America, one voice, united we stand.
Debbie Georgatos, host of America Can We Talk, is an author, attorney, and political analyst whose mission is to inspire the American political conversation about preserving liberty in the best country on earth.
And hello again and welcome to America Can We Talk and to today's First Five. I had planned to dedicate the First Five to the H.R. 1 bill. This is the bill, this is the complete overtaking, complete seizing of control of all elections in the United States of America by the federal government, a bill that the Democrats are desperate to pass. And I am going to get to that in one moment, because I have several points I want to make about that. This is a free election. This is an America-ending bill, nothing less. You have to see it in those lights. And then that light, I'm going to talk about it as a form of tyranny, absolute tyranny, what we are seeing out of the Democrat Party in Washington, D.C. But before I even get to that, I want to briefly mention that the House, the U.S. House, passed the COVID relief bill, the $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill. Less than 1/3 of it, of that money, has anything at all to do with helping people who lost out on their jobs, their businesses, their income because of the extreme overreaction to the COVID virus that caused a shutdown of our economy in this country. So the government caused an excessive damage to the economy by shutting down, and then they passed this $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill. Every single Christmas gift you can think of to every pet Democrat cause is in there. Money for unnecessary things, money that the Congress doesn't have to debate and discuss. Absurd, outrageous spending. I want to take just 1 minute and tell you about something, though, in terms of about money, just to keep this in mind. It's really impossible for anyone to comprehend what $1.9 trillion is. So think about this for a moment. $1 billion, billion, is also an enormous number. A trillion is 1,000 billions. A trillion is 1,000 billions. So let me just tell you about just how difficult it is to comprehend the idea of what even 1 billion. So we're talking about $1 billion here, where what they just passed is 1.9 trillion in absolutely unnecessary, wild, irresponsible Democrat pet project spending. 1.9 trillion, and they passed it because they can, because they control both houses, House and Senate, and the White House, and they're just going to stuff this massive bankrupting bill down the throats of the American people. But just on one moment, even what 1 billion is, and again, a trillion is 1,000 billions. 1 billion. A billion seconds ago, it was the year 1959. A billion minutes ago, 1 billion minutes ago, Jesus walked on the earth. A billion days ago, no one on the planet was yet walking on earth on 2 feet. A billion hours ago, our ancestors were living in the Stone Age. And $1 billion ago, in Washington, the way they spend was only 8 hours and 20 minutes ago. The numbers are staggering, they're incomprehensible, and it's part of why the left does this. Because, and I'm not saying that, I mean, the Republicans can be really bad about spending too, but this is so gluttonous, so just overstuffed, outrageous. Every single pet project a Democrat could ever want, and every funding of every left-wing cause in this country stuffed through, pushed through the House at a time when Americans are actually struggling, real Americans who lost jobs, lost businesses, lost their homes, lost all sorts of their acquired wealth over their decades as they worked for decades because of the government overreaction to COVID And now you have the government bankrupting America's future by this outrageous bill. But what I really want to talk about in the first 5 has to do with H.R. 1. We are watching tyranny on steroids in Washington. And I want to try to explain to you why I say the H.R. 1 bill is tyranny. I created a very short slide. I have a bunch of things I want to hit on this topic. I created a very short slide I sent to Matt the Wonderful just moments ago to try to explain to you when I say that this bill, this H.R. 1 bill, is absolutely tyranny on steroids. H.R. 1 is a complete destruction, the ending of any possible fair elections in America for the rest of time. It is a complete seizing of federal power by the leftist Democrat Party in Washington. It is tyranny. It is destruction of all sorts of basic guarantees of free and fair elections. It is a program that will mandate the states commit and engage in voter fraud and prevent the states from doing anything like voter integrity. So, Matt the Wonderful, do we have that slide up yet? I don't know if you have that. Maybe we don't have that. Okay, here we go. Tyranny in America, national. I just want to, this is H.R. 1. The left labeled it For the People Act of 2021. They always have these endlessly happy talk names, for goodness and love or some stupid name like that. They named it For the People Act of 2021. It should have been labeled the Permanently Democrat Control through Mandating Election Fraud and Prohibiting Election Integrity Protection Act. That would be a mouthful, but that's what it is. It will create permanent Democrat control over the entire election process. It'll mandate states to commit election fraud and prohibit them from following up with any of the election integrity programs and protections already in place in many states. It will force every state to add thousands and likely millions of ineligible voters to the rolls by mandating that states add names of individuals, not citizens. They're very careful with their language. They're talking about adding non-citizens, forcing states to add non-citizens to the voter rolls, taken from numerous state and federal databases such as the DMV, corrections, welfare, SSA, which is Social Security, countless more. No right of the states to even check the eligibility of the people they are adding to their voter rolls or even their citizenship. Next slide, last slide on this. It will prevent election officials from checking eligibility and qualifications of voters and from removing ineligible voters. States will not even be allowed to use, as been in the past, United States Postal Service would sometimes provide, here's a change of address. Debbie lived in Texas, but she moved to Montana. Okay, so we take Debbie off the voter rolls because she's in Montana, but you can't do that anymore. This bill would say you can't even check where people live. Bans voter ID laws by forcing states to permit voters to vote if they'll merely sign something saying, yeah, that's who I am. There's a safe and secure system. Mandates mail-in ballots, a major, massive source of fraud, even acknowledged by Jimmy Carter and his commission, which said the place for voter fraud is all in the mail-in ballots. Take federal control of the drawing of districts away from the states and into the hands of unelected bureaucrats. I'm going to hit about 6 more points on this bill. H.R. 1 is sitting and waiting to be voted on right now. Given where we are in this country, you'll have every Democrat in the House and every Democrat in the Senate. Well, even if they can see exactly what this is, they have no choice. They have to vote with their party. We are at the place, this will end the potential for fair elections in the future, America, period, full stop. So I will just tell you a few of the efforts being made by some people. You might think, well, okay, if this is bad, the Supreme Court will probably overthrow it. We'll take it to the Supreme Court, the extremely unreliable Supreme Court. There is actually a provision in the Constitution that says state legislatures are supposed to be the one that get to pass the laws that dictate election, that lay out the procedures for elections in their states. It does, however, also say in Article 1, Section 4, but after saying the state legislature should do that, but the Congress may at any time by law make or alter such regulations. But I will tell you what is in this bill is so egregious and so outrageous that there's actually been a letter sent by 20 states. 20 states have signed on to a letter to the U.S. Senate saying, don't you dare pass this bill. Don't you dare this, because everything they set up is to mandate and enable permanent vote fraud. You will never have a fair election again in America, and they know this. This is why they're doing it. But one of the great points that were made, among many, many things, is that even the Constitution says that the state legislatures make election laws, but Congress can overthrow them or change them. It also says, the Constitution also has a provision that says, if I don't have that open the right page, let me just get to some of the points they made. There's some question whether other provisions of the Constitution really give the states exclusive right to create laws with respect to the presidential elections. That is one argument. But you also have, you have brilliant points being made. The language is so broad in this that, for example, the Act seems to regulate all election of federal officers, even implicates the electors clause. Like maybe they'll think they're going to pick all the electors too while they're at it. These state attorneys general wrote a really great, brilliant, substantive, detailed letter to the Senate saying, don't you even think about violating the Constitution and taking away the right of the states to have election protection against election integrity. There's that famous clause, that famous statement by I think it was Lord Acton, who said, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. This is hook, line, and sinker, the most corrupt law I have ever, and we talk about a lot of them, that has ever faced America, because it's not just one election. If this law passes and everything that they want to have is in place and the states can't get it reversed by the courts, the federal government has put in place all sorts of, in fact, I'm going to tell you some of them. Mandating mail-in ballots. Mandating that many states don't do mail-in ballots. They have absentee ballots, very different. Absentee, you request a ballot, and they send it to you. They say, okay, Susie Q, this address, send it to you, send it back in. Mail-in ballots, the source of massive fraud in the last election, was the decision by many election officials to just send out ballots, willy-nilly to everybody. Numerous people in the thousands reported, hey, I got 5 mail-in ballots at my house. And this is being not just tolerated by this bill, mandated. So states who used to have some control over who is voting won't have it anymore. Mail-in ballots go wild, come back in. So they have mandating mail-in ballots, eliminating voter ID, which is like preventing states from cleaning up voter rolls, which is beyond absurd. And then there are all sorts of other provisions that have to do with limiting speech. Another possible source eventually of overturning this monstrosity of a bill if it were to actually be passed and be signed into law. Mandates relating to speech that say what you can and can't say to someone registering, like what if you say something offensive, like, do you have a picture ID, for example? Anyway, this is tyranny on steroids, nothing less, and I want to be sure you're aware of it. If you have not contacted your member of the U.S. House, or whoever represents you, contact your 2 senators, even if they're Republican, tell them, do not pass this bill. This is simply egregious, outrageous, and unacceptable in the United States of America. And that, my very fine friends, is today's first 5. Maybe longer than 5. I started the show by telling you I had a guest joining me in studio, and I'm so glad she's here. She's been on the show, I think it was actually 2 years ago, Felicia Wilson, and you'll meet her in just a moment. She's here in studio. I will tell you, I was kind of writing up what I want to talk to her about. She puts on, sponsors, created this beautiful, beautiful thing, this Think Out, Be Light fashion show. And it involves young people who, men and women, or boys and girls, who have Down syndrome. And it's the most, make a grown woman cry kind of thing, because it's so, it's so loving, it's so empowering, it's so fun, so bold. So she's doing it again this year, but I was looking at her social media. She's sitting right there, and I'm telling you, I don't understand how this woman does all the things she does. So without further ado, Felicia Wilson, hello.
Hi, Debbie.
I am so glad you're here. It's great to see you.
It's good to see you too. How have you been?
I'm great, and I'm happy to be here. And I haven't congratulated you in person. I know you got married.
Yes, ma'am, I did. I'm not Felicia Benton anymore. I'm Felicia Wilson. Still getting used to saying it, but I'm getting there.
It goes together. Felicia Wilson. I like that.
Okay, good. We're in it now.
There we go. Okay, so I often say in this show, and I will tell you, my listeners, one reason I want to talk to her. I love featuring people who they kind of represent the goodness of America, the goodness of so many people in this country who do so many good things. They're unsung heroes. They don't end up getting big news articles splashed out telling how great they are, but they do these things that make America better, great, strong, and good. One example is this that Felicia does. So I just want to have you start off, if you will, tell about this Think Out, Be Light fashion show. And by the way, World Down Syndrome Day is coming up very soon. It's on that day, right?
Yes, ma'am. March the 21st is when it's happening in a little over a week. So we're on our 10-day-ish countdown. But we started the Think Out, Be Light fashion show, one, because I have a little girl that was born with Down syndrome who is 11, which is weird for me to say that she's already 11 years old. But we started this show about 6 years ago because we saw some friends at church one day, a mom and a daughter who also had a child or an adult really that had a child with Down syndrome. And I just thought in that moment about how cool it would be to watch that young woman be celebrated. They looked like they were having a little bit of a rough day. And I thought about what my life personally would look like in the next 10 or 15 years, just thinking about that mother and daughter. And I wanted to do something where young adults with special needs, particularly Down syndrome, could feel empowered. So birthed from that was the Think Out, Be Light fashion show. The next day I was actually at a Target in Dallas, and I just happened to run into a group of young adults who were shopping with their teacher, and I walked up to that teacher. I could tell that they were very much so like my Zoe. So I walked up to that teacher and I said, "Hey, you don't know me and I don't know you, but I think it would be really cool if we worked together on a fashion show." And she said to me, "We actually have been thinking about doing something just like that. I would love to work with you." And out of the blue, I met her and we started to create this event. So that was years ago, happened by God's good grace, and here we are.
It most certainly did involve God's good grace. And you know, the pictures, by the way, I think people can buy tickets. You can access it on Facebook.
You can actually go to our website, toblfashionshow.com, and everything is really a donation because we're doing a virtual event this year.
I was going to ask you if it's virtual. TOBL, is that you said?
toblfashionshow.com. And we're doing a full virtual event, so you don't have to go anywhere this year, but I would love to talk a little bit about kind of the theme for the year and what we're celebrating in particular.
Please do.
Yeah, so this year we are focusing on bringing awareness to the people who provide jobs for people with special needs. So we're highlighting a couple of organizations that do training, that do job placement, but that are really focused on providing work. So the theme this year is Be For Me, Be For Me. And it's all about folks coming before, like literally carving a path for our friends with learning differences, but also advocating on their behalf, thinking about how they can create an opportunity, a space for people who might not be the same as they are. So that's the theme for the year.
Well, I love that. And I actually saw, I don't know whether it was an interview or something, you said something about, it's actually would be healthier for America's, I am paraphrasing,
Yes,
culture, society, to have more young people, more people, not young people necessarily, people with Down syndrome in the workforce. And so just talk about that. Why do you believe that?
Of course, the day before, also God's good grace, I was invited to do a TEDx for Purdue University, and the title of my TEDx is The Workforce Needs People with Down Syndrome Now More Than Ever. That idea was birthed from some of the work that we do with cities and economic development corporations. I have a company called the Zoe Communications Agency. We focus primarily on working with cities, ISDs, municipalities. We build communication strategies for those folks. So we were working just this fall on a project with a local economic development corporation. And what we heard from them was that, we are doing the work to bring jobs to the region, but so many of the jobs that we have, although we have the training for them, we are having a hard time finding people who have soft skills. And I thought, I know lots of people who have soft skills. They might not be the people you would immediately employ, but they certainly have natural soft skills. They take tasks easily. They are personable. They have all of these natural born characteristics and can be taught the other things that they need to know in order to perform well on a job. So that's the motivation behind that thought. And I'm watching it play out with these various organizations. We're working with and learning about organizations like My Possibilities in Plano, who are echoing that same sentiment. We are working and learning about an organization called Incorporated in Plano, an organization called Soaring Eagles in DeSoto. They are echoing and seeing those same ideas and painting them right in front of our faces. So we want other people to see the possibilities that lie in folks that are different.
So these organizations you just listed, they actually try to help find employers who could possibly hire, and then they also connect with these families who have people in their family who have Down syndrome who would like to be more in the world or are ready to be in the world.
Yes,
they
ma'am.
Connect.
Yes, ma'am. And not just Down syndrome. There are folks with all kinds of intellectual differences that might have not typically been able to find a job, but have been provided the tools, the training, and the resources through these organizations to help them learn about what happens next in their own personal lives.
I find it all.
It's fascinating, right?
It is. Well, it's fascinating. It's just also just kind of mind-blowing and so heartening. I mean, so many good people trying to think of ways to just bring us more together, to
100%.
feel as a culture, as a society, and to understand each other. You know, not to be only around people who are like us.
Right.
Like, God, I love
yeah,
that.
and the fashion show is a very soft way to do that. I'm sad that we're not doing it in person, because the people who come to the event get a chance to feel the atmosphere of the room. Our volunteers have the opportunity to get to know these beautiful people that maybe they may have not have encountered. But this fashion show is a way for folks who maybe have not engaged with that community to see something a little bit different, to hear and participate in something a little bit different, and maybe think a little different too.
Well, you see them beyond a label. You see them as people.
100%. People who belong, who were birthed into our society and therefore have a place within it, and not just to be put in their own individual locations. You know, I've been doing a lot of research, and 30 plus years ago, 30-ish years ago, my little girl easily could have been asylumed or put into a place where she wouldn't have been with me. That was a normal thing to happen, for children to quietly just be put away. And I've learned so much from her and see her possibilities, that it's just so, it's exciting to be a part of this new portion of our community and these new opportunities that are being created.
You're just heart melting. It really it's hard to talk to you. I feel like you're just so noble what you're doing. So I want to go back to the fashion show for a moment. It is boys and girls. I mean, men and women.
And boys and girls, men and women, everybody.
And you have people who donate fashion, donate clothing, or how's that work?
You know, between the pandemic and Snowmageddon, we had to make some major adjustments this year. So we made a last minute adjustment. We normally have several designers that contribute.
I thought so, yeah.
But this year, what we did a couple of weeks ago, we reached out to our friend. His name is Charlie French. He's an artist that is here in Dallas, and he painted he was born with Down syndrome, and he makes just the most beautiful art. So he designed, he painted something, and we converted that thing and made it a print, and we have it on shirts, and we've got it on sweatshirts and masks and mugs. And so proceeds from our sales of that product will go toward those organizations we're supporting.
Wow, you're just really something. Okay, so I take it Zoe, who's your daughter, who's now 11, she has a great time. She enjoyed this.
100%. Zoe loves the camera.
Yeah, I forgot why she was at our house one time. She was with you, but anyway, very happy. I mean, just a very happy person. Very, so tender. Okay, so people who are listening could go, and they can, I mean, I know it's virtual, but still you get to go there. So it's toblfashionshow.com.
That's right, toblfashionshow.com. You can do all kinds of stuff. You can click the Get Tickets button, and you can buy a ticket. It's just a donation, $5, $50, whatever dollars you want to do. We'll send you a link in a couple of days to where you can watch it. You can watch it on Vimeo. We'll be streaming there, as well as on Facebook, and you can participate right along with us. We'll be doing some things live, so my husband and I are going to co-host it, and you'll see Zoe. We'll do some live things. And we've got tons of footage also of the folks that we are highlighting this year.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so I love thinking about, too, your goal that the proceeds will go to actually help organizations that are in turn trying to help kind of build a bigger sense of community between employers, young people with various different kinds of intellectual challenges. And I just think, you know, you made a point about society be richer. I think it's something like that was your word, but I don't know if you've already said all you want to say on that, but I think that's such a good point.
It is, yeah. Society will be richer because we're missing out on the gifts of those that typically would have been placed in or people that we don't normally pay attention to.
Yeah.
We're missing out on the things that they have just because they're not like you or I. So every encounter that Zoe has with people that do not know her is always a bright one. There's just not a time where she comes into contact with a person where their experience in life is not better. And I've experienced that on just so many different levels with all the people that we've met over the years with Think Out, Be Light.
Yeah, you have great pictures of her on Facebook, just hugging people and rocking out with you sometimes, some music. I love it. So the other thing, I'm so glad you could be here. That was the main thing I want to talk about, was you have so many things going on in life. I mean, you're just kind of a multifaceted, thinking of new ideas. You're like an idea person.
Can't help myself. It's just the way I was programmed, Debbie.
But tell me quick about this TEDx. How did that all get started, and how did it go?
Yeah, my husband likes to pitch me in places and I don't even know about. So he said, "Babe, I pitched you to Purdue to talk. Are you interested?" And I said, "I guess so." So they went and spied out a little bit of what I was about and came to me and said, "Would love for you to talk. What you got?" And this is what I've been holding on to, this idea about integrating people with intellectual challenges into the workforce. And so they liked it and we rolled with it.
I love it. So this has already happened. You've done this.
We have recorded it, but it is actually streaming. Their TEDx is the day before World Down Syndrome Day. So, I did not plan that. So that event happens on March the 20th, and then our event, Think Out, Be Light, happens on March the 21st.
So March the 21st, people can find it on your website. They can find it on Facebook. March 21st, which is World Down Syndrome Day, and the Think Out, Be Light fashion show rocks on in 2021.
It does. We are carrying on. Last year we canceled it 3 days before the world shut down. We pushed the cancel because we saw what was about to happen. So we didn't get a chance to do it last year. So this year is our bit of redemption.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Felicia, I am so glad you're available to come in and talk today and share this with our listeners. I really hope, I always enjoy the pictures, and I love that you can go this year. You can sit in the comfort of your home and watch it.
You sure can, and it's not very long, about a 90-minute show, and you can interact with us. We'll be in the chat. You can talk back and forth with us,
okay.
so it'll be lots of fun.
Okay. Well, just congratulations to you for creating this, for having the love in your heart to move it forward, for your daughter, for the whole community. I just really commend you. And thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for inviting me. I love talking to you, Debbie.
Well, it's great. It's been a really long time, by the way, too.
I know. We'll have to do something about that.
We'll have to do something about that for sure. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So congratulations to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So folks, I have one more topic I want to hit today, and I just want to tell you, I think I called this one Border Busting Bonanza, and I will tell you that I think the border issues are among the ones that fall into the category of people who decided to vote for President Biden, whatever number really did. I am telling you, a very significant portion of them had no idea the kind of tyranny about to be unleashed on America. I mentioned, I think the COVID spending bill is tyranny. Most definitely the H.R. 1, the absolute theft of all future elections on behalf of the Democrat Party, the permanent Democrat majority party bill, or another good name to give it. But the other thing is what's happening at the border. And when President Trump was running in 2016, there were a lot of conversations, a lot of his speaking was on the subject of we have an out of control border. And it was kind of interesting because first, as he began talking about that, I think there were a lot of Americans who said, well, I don't see that much in the news. I mean, maybe if you live on a border state or in a border community, you might have been aware of it. But for the most part, a lot of Americans didn't see the news reporting very much about it. And so President Trump, as he was running in 2016, President Trump talking about it, there was some reaction at first, like, really, is it that big a deal? What's the problem here? And as President Trump continued his campaign in 2016, or candidate Trump, he talked not just about numbers, but about the concept that, in order to be a sovereign nation, a country that has a government that is in control of its borders, you have to have control of your borders. It led him ultimately to the proposal relating to the wall, led him also to the concept of, it really awakened many Americans to kind of think for the first time, or to rethink after a long time, the idea, what should be our policy at the border with respect to, for example, asylum, asylum is a particular category. Asylum is what applied to refugees. When refugees come to America, people who did not make a legal application to move here, not people who followed the legal immigration system and filed the forms and did whatever else they had to do and waited until they got official legal entry into America. That's one category of legal immigration. But people showing up at the border and crossing from the southern border crossing America's southern border into America, into the border states, there was kind of renewed attention to the idea, well, wait a minute, first of all, what's our policy about them? Do we stop them? Do we just simply let them all come on in and spread? Do we try to hold a hearing, decide if they can meet our asylum standards? And as President Trump moved forward in his presidency, he tried to put policies in place that said, we're actually going to have something like order at the border. So the wall was one piece of it. It's not finished, but the wall being built at places otherwise not enforceable by Border Patrol people. And then, in addition to that, there was the RIM policy, the RIM policy, Remain in Mexico, which was for the people who walked up from Central America through Mexico and showed up at the southern border. The idea was you can't come into America and then begin the process of having us assess your request for asylum. You have to remain in Mexico while we're assessing it. This obviously was a great deterrent to people whose real plan was to come into America, and whether they met America's asylum standards or not, they planned on staying. In our system, even prior to President Trump, we had years where we had, under the Obama administration, a catch and release program where pretty much people come in, we'd catch them and say, hey, you don't really have a legal right to be here, so we set a hearing for you, and then you release them and tell them to come back on a certain date. And whether you cared for the exact terminology used sometimes in the Trump speeches about those people, the fact was everyone can figure out that those people who are willing to cross the border illegally to get into America and are told, you're here, you're safe, and you can go wherever you want, but be sure and come back for your hearing, most people can figure out those people, the vast majority, and the 90+% are never going to show up for their hearing. So you had President Trump trying to restore order at the border. But what the left did, what the media did with that, was to try to paint President Trump as cruel and heartless. There were endless media stories racing down to the border showing kids who were being held because kids would enter America, minor children would enter America without anyone bringing them here, without adults, and unclear whether they were bought by sex traffickers, human traffickers, cartel, drug traffickers, other kinds of evil, nefarious people, because they didn't come here with a family. And so there was an effort to try to figure out the border. What do you do with these people? President Trump's plan was not to allow them just to scatter loose, but to try to have some system in place to deal with people, minors, who came into America and didn't have parents or guardians with them. So the left, they had a field day trying to present President Trump's policy and responding to them as saying, this guy is heartless, he's cruel, they're living in cages, children in cages, even though the pictures the media would put up about the Trump presidency years pointing out they were complaining about the cages were actually pictures taken from the Obama years, who was actually the administration, Obama-Biden, that built those cages. So you had the media, my point is, the media hysterically working up ignorant Americans into thinking that America had suddenly, under the Trump administration, become a heartless and cruel and vicious and unfair country dealing with these poor people coming over the border. The media happily play along, and they would just play over and over every pathetic-looking picture, let every left-wing candidate and elected official do their little spiel at the border and complain again and tout themselves as having compassion. So the left had been conditioning America to say we have to, America has become heartless. So, we're going to have compassion. We're going to have a better plan. Well, the Biden plan has turned out to be let everybody in and figure it out later. And even worse than that, I want to tell you what's happening at the border. And notice, by the way, we were drenched. There was an avalanche of media coverage about every single issue at the border during the 4 years of the Trump presidency. Now that we're in the first, whatever we are, 7 weeks in the Biden administration, you could not get a mainstream media outlet to portray the picture, to tell you the truth, to explain what is happening, because there's no political advantage to covering that story. If you're the left-wing media mob, which is pretty much every media outlet in this country, you do not see any benefit by telling the American people the truth about the impact on America of the Biden immigration and border policy. So let me share something with you. At this very moment, because of the Biden free-for-all at the border, I mean, just a massive mess at the border, won't finish the wall, are not enforcing our laws. They did reinstate, or I guess they're re-examining whether to reinstate catch and release, which was the Obama program, which the Trump administration put a stop to, and the Biden team is now looking at it again. But it seems as though while we're waiting for that analysis, they've kind of gone back to that. But let me just explain what's happening at the border. So 3,200 migrant children are currently in Border Patrol custody. 3,200. That is more children that were ever in custody at the border under the Trump administration. But I want to remind you again, my point here about the media. The media is silent. You have to go to the alleged, the right-wing media sources to get any truth, to get any facts, because the media is not going to cover a failing Biden policy of any kind, most certainly not the border. So 3,200 migrant children are now stuck in border facilities, and this is more than ever before. And so they have, and actually among them, what is the number? Nearly 1,400 of those 3,200, nearly 1,400 have been held by the Customs and Border Protection people holding facilities for more than the number of days permitted by law, because they don't know what to do with them. You have these laws, you got to do this, you got to move them along. I mean, the fact is, if the border's open, you're going to have more and more people come over, and then it's incumbent on Border Patrol and the states that run along the states that have a border with Mexico to try to figure out what to do. So they're not following the law, but the media is not going to cover that. These people are just they're describing the Customs and Border Protection, CBP, is describing what's happening. Dwindling bed space, massive backlog of minors waiting in facilities that were largely designed to briefly detain adult men. Only 500 beds left available on the southern border for the increasing number of migrant children. And of course, this is because we're not enforcing the border. We're not doing that, and so they have the kids here. Next thing is, within the last 4 weeks, we've had 100,000 migrants. Last 4 weeks, so all under Biden, 100,000 migrants flooding the U.S. border. And actually, the Border Patrol, there was a Border Patrol statement, which I want to find, in which they're basically saying we're going to end up this year with more migrants crossing into America than we did total over the previous 3 years. America is becoming a magnet, again, for illegal border crossing. And we are doing that. That is the truth in part, because we won't enforce the borders. We have a friendly, hey, everybody, come on in. Everything's going to be cool and everyone's going to be legal and don't worry about it at all. So new numbers reveal, it's like they say, a biblical scale of the Biden-induced mass migration. But you cannot ignore the connection between the statements and policies by the administration in the White House and the conduct of the people who are coming up to America from Central America and through Mexico. They actually get these messages. In fact, I meant to send them out to Wonderful. I don't know if you can find it, probably not. But anyway, there were many, many pictures of migrants standing in Mexico and inside America's borders. People who came up here from Central America or from Mexico and coming up trying to get into America, and they have T-shirts, really bright, white, starched white T-shirts saying, Biden, please let us in. Okay, who do you think paid for those? Who pays for those shirts that are worn by people who have no legal right to be here, who just walked up from Central America and South America and through Mexico. They have shirts. I mean, not just like one guy. I'm talking about a whole, like it's an American protest. But these are illegal aliens with no right to be here. And they're inside America with pre-printed, fresh, starch white t-shirts. Biden, let us in. And they're all standing there waving signs like you would at a protest, like a person would at a protest. Pre-printed t-shirts. Who created those? How did those people, who allegedly are coming out from Central America because of poverty? I'm not saying there isn't poverty, but obviously this is an orchestrated effort. This is an orchestrated, manipulated effort. And now we're talking about worrying about having more people come into America in the next year than came in the previous last 3 years combined. On top of that, you have Texas Governor Abbott finally deciding, because we can't get the government to finish the wall, we can't get them to adequately fund Border Patrol, so Governor Abbott has deployed the Texas National Guard to the border. He's calling it Operation Lone Star. He's sending people down, our National Guard people, to enforce the border. And actually a lot of talk about, once you're away from the land that is the international border, it's entirely possible that Texas and other border states might decide, we can build our own wall on our Texas state land. I don't know if I see people making reference to it. I don't know if it's really going to happen. But the idea of waiting for the federal government to finally enforce the border with 4 years of Biden, or Biden's going to be out soon. By the way, I saw something very quick on that. Biden Harris have announced an upcoming, plan, or they're going to be doing events. You can see they are orchestrating. They're orchestrating getting America used to the idea that Biden's going to fade out and Kamala Harris is going to come in. They are presenting themselves together, letting her have more and more of a role. He was never going to be president. They knew that. Everyone knew that. She was going to be the president, and they're already starting to set this up. But back to the border. So our National Guard has to do at the border what the federal government is refusing to do, which is to enforce the American border. And also we had Senators Cruz and Hawley, two conservatives in the Senate, have also come out criticizing President Biden, saying that there's the Border Patrol people, Customs and Border Patrol, CBP, are so overwhelmed trying to keep the border at all secure that they had to shut down their Arizona highway checkpoints. And if you've ever driven there, you realize that one way they catch people who've come into America illegally is with these checkpoints. You get stopped, they look in the car, say, who are you? Whatever they ask, I don't know. But the point is, they are so underfunded, understaffed, and forced to put their resources at the border that they can't even keep their checkpoints in place. So President Trump very helpfully and cheerfully weighed in, because he is not going to let this whole Biden presidency go by without him explaining to the American people what Biden is doing. President Trump weighed in on Biden. I want to read a brief statement what Trump had to say. When I was president, our southern border was in great shape, stronger, safer, and more secure than ever before. We ended catch and release, shut down the asylum fraud, crippled the vicious smugglers, drug dealers, and human traffickers. The wall, despite horrendous Democrat delays, would have easily been finished by now. It's working magnificently. Our country is being destroyed at the southern border, a terrible thing to see. I want to just say this about that. I mentioned at the start of the show about the tyranny of the left. And I know that there are many commentators, pundits, writers who engage in hyperbole, who choose words that are an exaggeration for what they're trying to say. And I don't do hyperbole. I am telling you, what we are watching in Washington is flat out tyranny. A $1.9 trillion COVID bailout, with about a third at the most going to actually help Americans who lost out on their life savings, lost out on their business, lost out everything because of a crisis the government also created, which was the overreaction to COVID. So you have a massive spending program. Every single possible program any Democrat could ever want in any state gets thrown into this bill. It passes the House because they have majority. And that is not just irresponsible spending. That's not just, okay, we're a little carried away in our spending. That's a form of tyranny, and I want to tell you why I say that. There's a term, there were two people actually that created the concept and explained to people this idea of the Cloward-Piven strategy. Cloward-Piven strategy. And the basic idea was, when you want to take over a country and create chaos and tyranny with the goal of stirring up the people so that everything is chaotic, it's out of control, people get fearful, they get fearful for stability, they will beg the government to take charge of things. And this idea of just creating chaos and havoc is what the left has been doing, whether anyone on the left could quote Cloward-Piven or not. What they're doing, what they have been doing in the last year prior to Biden being sworn in and up to now, is continuing to allow America to dissolve into chaos. Having massive riots all over the country in Democrat-run cities and states with no effort to shut it down, very little effort to even prosecute it, very little effort to even stop it. I mean, just a year long of riots designed to instill in the hearts and minds of Americans fear, concerns the government isn't going to protect us, demands that the government take charge, let the government have all the power they want, whatever they want, just make sure they keep us safe. That happened. This $1 trillion spending bill, we can't afford this, and no one in Washington who voted for it thinks we have the money for that. No one thinks, oh yeah, we can afford this. Yeah, we got a lot in savings. We don't have the money for the budget before this came along. And Biden has already said this $1.9 trillion, that's just the beginning. We're going to be doing more. You're going to see more spending. It is a conscious creation of a dependency population where everyone sits in their home and waits and says, oh, wait, maybe if I sit here, I'll get another check and I can demand another payment and I can vote for the party that's going to give me free money forever. And this is bankrupting America. It's going to send us into financial chaos. The left knows this, and they're fine with it. And then you compound that with H.R. 1. The absolute obliteration of free elections in the country. Absolute obliteration. No more election integrity provisions will be allowed to exist. There will be no effort to determine whether the voter rolls are accurate. No effort permitted. No effort permitted to determine whether someone who shows up to vote is really the person whose name is on the roll. They have to sign something. Yeah, that's me. Yeah, okay, you can vote. You have the absolute destruction of the election system. And then you have what I just finished talking about, the border. You have absolute intentional chaos at the border. This is not because the left ran on a platform of compassion. And so to show compassion, they have to let more people in. The border is out of control intentionally. The border is out of control as part of the larger package, the larger determination, the larger effort of the American left to simply disrupt America as she was intended to be, disrupt our country, our culture, our society, our economy, to the point that everyone screams in panic and says, okay, we're overtaken, please help us. And the other thing about the border is you have to understand allowing all of these people in, 100,000 migrants in the last 3 weeks, that's a huge number. That's bigger than all small towns in America. That's a huge number. And those people will be among the people the Democrats plan to cover when they get around to their amnesty bill, their immigration amnesty bill, where they're going to say, you know what? We can't seem to, we've got to get everyone in and out of the shadows. We've got to be compassionate. You know, all these people came here for a better life. How could we begrudge them that? Let them all come in and out of the shadows, and we're going to put them on a fast track to citizenship, and they'll be Democrat voters for the rest of time. I am not exaggerating when I say we are watching Marxist tyranny unfold right before our eyes. That is what's happening in America. That is what all of us have the responsibility, the obligation, the duty to fight against. If you make the efforts to contact your one member of Congress, your member, congressman or congresswoman, you contact your 2 senators, run down all those issues. Support the organizations that are actually fighting on these issues. Support the organizations that are lobbying Congress. Make your voice heard in your local community, in your city, your town, your county government, your state government, make your voices heard. If you live in a border state, tell your governor you expect them to secure the border. Governor Abbott has stepped up. He's sending down the National Guard. I don't know if it'll be enough. I don't know whether it's already too out of control. I don't know. But understand we're living in extremely perilous times in this country. I do not engage in hyperbole. What we are watching is the Marxist tyranny overtaking of America. And every single patriot who loves this country, who loves freedom, who loves the Constitution, who loves the promise of the Declaration of Independence, every patriot needs to be on duty, on fire, to protect this country. Before I go to telling you why the stories we talked about today matter to you, I want to tell you a little bit more about what I'm doing in my show coming up. First of all, good news for our newsletter subscribers. We have squared away the issue. We have the newsletter back. It got shut down last week, but we've resolved that. So the newsletter went out, I think, last night for last week. If you'd like to get our once weekly newsletter that comes out on Fridays, go to my website, americacanwetalk.org. On the home page, hit subscribe. The newsletter is free. It comes to you once a week. It comes to whatever email address you use and you subscribe. It contains links to the previous week's interviews, the previous week's show conversation, the topics I cover. It includes links to the blog posts that we put up on our website at americacanwetalk.org. It is filled with information, and it's a great thing to subscribe to, and it's free. It's also a great way to catch up on the show if you missed it during the week, and it's a great opportunity, a simple way to share the show. If you've been telling your friends, this show I'm kind of liking, get the newsletter and forward it to your friends. It contains all the information about how to find the show on social media. Second thing I want to mention about social media. We are on the show continuing right now. The show goes out on YouTube and YouTube Live and Twitter, on Periscope, and on Facebook. But we're also posting the show at Rumble. And so, the main thing I want you to take away from this little piece I'm telling you now about social media is the best and most reliable way to watch my show is to go to my website and watch it live right on my website, americacanwetalk.org. Right at 3 p.m., Monday through Thursday, americacanwetalk.org/live/ and you can watch the show on the website. This way, if there were to be social media interference with the show, you can still watch it on my website. Next thing I want to tell you is that we are starting a membership on this show. I've been talking about it for a while. It's now going to start the first day of April. It's going to be the first day of April, which is April, the first Thursday of April, which happens to be April 1st. We're going to go to the Thursday show only, is members only. The other 3 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, same as always, available everywhere, available on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and on my own website and on Rumble. But Thursday's show is going to be unique in the ways that, number one, a different studio. Number two, we're going to have an entirely different format. It's a Q&A format. The entire show is a conversation between you and me and my guest, if we have a guest. We'll have guests sometimes, not guests sometimes. But the entire idea of the Thursday show is a conversation, because the way my show has always been set up, I don't have callers, I don't have Q&A coming in, but the entire show will be Q&A, and it will be, you'll be able to submit the questions to me either ahead of time by emailing me at americacanwetalk@gmail.com or by using our handy dandy fancy system we have, which is using your text messaging capacity on your phone. If you want to join our America Can We Talk text messaging family, you can text. In fact, I'm hoping Matt the Wonderful is finding this while I'm talking, but he's got a great slide he made. It's nice and pretty, but you can go to, on your text messaging, instead of in the to line, instead of putting to, Aunt Sally, you put 2 on the to line, you enter those 5 numbers, 53445. On the to line, put 53445, and the message part, put America. And when you do that, that comes to my account, and that will be one way you'll be able to submit questions on the Thursday show. You'll also be able, on the Thursday show, we have a second and other account, same thing, 53445, but for Thursday, for the members only, you'll be able to have a separate account, and I'll tell you how to get to that when we get to the member part, but you'll be able to send in your questions. And the real reason I'm telling you all this is I want very much for this show to continue for a very long time. I love talking with you about preserving America. I want the show to last a long time. I don't want it filled with advertisements. I want it to be our conversation, our time to talk about preserving America. So if you love the show, I'd love if you would consider becoming a member. The membership thing will be set up by the end of next week, I believe, on our website. We're working on it. We're getting there. But just to get you ready for it, it's a mere $5 a month or $50 a year. And that gets you access to the Thursday show every single week. Thursday show just for members only. I hope you'll do that. It's going to be a great time to have a more back and forth conversation. You'll meet Matt the Wonderful. He's going to join me on the show, and you'll see him and talk to him, and he'll be fielding questions, and we'll be talking about the issues we want to talk about. I have already a huge stack of emails from listeners of questions they've sent in, so we probably start with those once in a while, but it's a great chance to have a more personal, ongoing connection, and I hope you'll consider that. And we also have a donate button on my show, on my website, americacanwetalk.org. This show is entirely listener supported. I've never been paid a penny for doing this, and I've been doing it since 2014. I do it out of love of America. And so if you'd like to donate to support this show, you can go to americacanwetalk.org. On the home page, you click on donate, and you can make a one-time or a recurring donation, and I'd be grateful beyond words if you would do that. And if you cannot afford to do that, or you don't care to do that, love if you'd share the show. This is how shows like this grow in this era where we have a lot of censorship by the tech giants. So shows like mine grow because you tell your friends, or as I often say in speeches, tell your 25 best friends about the show. Send them a link to the website, send them a link to the YouTube channel, send them a link, tell them about the show. So this is how the show grows. So what I like to do, I do at the end of every show, is tell you why the stories we talked about today matter to you. So we started out today talking about, Matt, the one will have it up, nationalized election tyranny. I must tell you, friends, H.R. 1 is the answer to the profoundly alarming hypothetical question, what would you do if you wanted to destroy free and fair elections in a nation forever? H.R. 1 is the answer to what you would do. Automatic registration of all individuals, not citizens, people ineligible to vote, people not citizens, people who have for a variety of reasons, don't have the right to vote. Prevents election officials from removing ineligible voters from the rolls. Bans voter ID laws, mandates ballot drop boxes, a source of massive fraud in the last election. National Commission on Gerrymandering, replacing states doing the state legislatures drawing the district lines, and on and on and on and on. I may do a longer segment if this bill doesn't get killed, telling you how bad it is. H.R. 1 is monstrous, evil. It is America destroying. It is in no way validated by the November 3rd election. Americans did not vote for this. Now the border busting bonanza. Data coming in from all along the U.S.-Mexico border. America is getting swamped by illegal immigrants. 100,000 in the past 4 weeks. 3,200 migrant children, an all-time record, stuck in Border Patrol custody. Arizona Border Chief says 2021. Oh, this was a quote I didn't find during the show. Arizona Border Chief has said 2021 illegal immigration on track to be worse than the past 3 years combined. Texas forced to deploy our own National Guard. Trump steadily drawing attention to the border crises. This too is monstrous evil. This too is in no way validated by the November 3rd election. Americans did not vote for this. Excuse me. Governing without the consent of the governed will not end well. And that, my very fine friends, is America Can We Talk for today. Tune in every Monday through Thursday at 3 p.m. Central Time to my show, where I always talk truth about America. And I do this show, to be very clear, I do this show out of love of America, love of the founding ideas of America, the promise of America from the Declaration to the Constitution, the founding ideas that are the exact source of America's greatness, its strength, its freedom, its blessings as a land of opportunity. It's those ideas, those promises, and the Declaration and the Constitution that make America what it is. I do this show out of love of America and really love for the American people. The American people are the good and great and noble people we are because of the founding ideas, because of the Judeo-Christian ideas that were the root and the source of the creation of America. This love of America and love of the American people is something felt by millions of Americans, and I just try to give it voice on this show. So tune in Monday through Thursday at 3 p.m. Central Time to America Can We Talk, where I always talk truth about America because America matters. And I'll talk to you next time.
Can you hear us now?
America Can We Talk? Truth about America.